Service and Labor jointly with technology. At this time, can everybody please silence your cell phones? If you wish to testify, please go to the back of the room to fill out a testimony slip. At this time and going forward, no one is to approach the dais. I repeat, no one is to approach the dais. Chairs, we are ready to begin.
Good afternoon. I'm Councilmember Carmen De La Rosa, Chair on the Committee of Civil Service and Labor. Welcome to today's joint hearing held in collaboration with Chair Gutierrez and the Technology Committee to discuss the impact of automation and artificial intelligence on the New York City workforce. In addition to today's oversight topic, we will be hearing the following legislation. Intro 372, sponsored by Councilmember Keith Powers, in relation to establishing timelines for the approval of permits and expanding real-time tracking of pending permits. Intro 540, sponsored by Councilmember Brennan, in relation to the assessment of cloud-first policy for city technology systems. Intro 1066, sponsored by Councilmember Williams, in relation to the creation of an interagency task force to examine the impacts of artificial intelligence on civil service and civil service employees. Intro 1235, sponsored by Councilmember Brewer, in relation to the creation of a centralized system for processing Freedom of Information Law FOIA requests. Reso 860, sponsored by Majority Leader Farias, in relation to calling on the New York City on DCAS to develop and implement a qualifying practical exam for painters as part of a civil service testing process. In recent years, we have witnessed the rapid advancements in automation and artificial intelligence technologies. AI-assisted tools like chatbots and machine learning models are now commonplace across a range of industries, including government. These technologies offer exciting possibilities, such as streamlining processes, analyzing large data sets, and improving operational efficiency. But there are also some pressing concerns. How are these tools handling private or sensitive information? Are the algorithms trained on complete and unbiased information? What are the consequences when decisions about public services or benefits are made by automated systems instead of humans? And how do we ensure that these technologies support rather than displace the dedicated workers who keep our city running? The City Council has taken important steps to regulate the use of AI. In 2021, the City Council enacted Local Law 144, which prohibits the use of automated employment decision tools unless they've undergone an independent bias audit. And in 2022, the City Council enacted Local Law 35, requiring city agencies to report annually on their use of automated decision systems. Today's hearing builds on this work. Our goal is to ensure that the city embraces innovation without compromising transparency, fairness, or the rights of workers. We want AI automation to enhance the work of our municipal workforce does, not replace it. The committee looks forward to hearing from the Office of Technology and Innovation, OTI, and the Department of Citywide Administrative Services, DCAS, about how these technologies are being used and what steps we take to protect workers while responsibly integrating new tools. We also look forward to hearing feedback on Introduction 1066 as we consider how best to monitor the long-term impacts of artificial intelligence on civil service and ensure workers have the voice in shaping those policies. I'd like to thank the committee staff, Senior Policy Analyst Elizabeth Arts, and Policy Analyst Justin Campos, and Senior Legislative Counsel Ria Sawara for their hard work in preparing for this hearing. I also like to thank my Chief of Staff, James Burke, Legislative Director Kiana Diaz, and Comms Director Frey Familia. I would like to recognize that we've been joined by Council Members Williams, Majority Leader Farias, obviously Chair Gutierrez is here, Council Member Holden, and Council Member Brewer. Okay, we're gonna pause. Oh my goodness, and Councilmember Caban. We're gonna pause for a second to get, and Councilmember Menon, sorry. Yeah, we're gonna pause for a second. Our Zoom is down for a minute. And then I'll turn to Chair Gutierrez once the Zoom is back up.
you ask? Who did you ask to speak?
Okay. I now turn to Chair Gutierrez for her opening statement.
Thank you, Chair de la Rosa. Welcome and happy last day of school for everybody. I'm Councilmember Jennifer Gutierrez, Chair of the Committee on Technology. Thank you for joining us today's oversight hearing on the impact of automation on New York City's workforce. I'm especially excited to be chairing this hearing with Chair de la Rosa and to look at AI from multiple angles of how it affects the workforce in the city. Artificial intelligence, or AI, it's already here. It's in our phones, in our schools, at our doctor's office, your HR department, and it's moving fast. Faster than most of our systems are ready for. But I want to be clear that AI can be good, it can be useful, it can help doctors detect illnesses earlier, it can help teachers reach students in different ways, and it can help government translate and deliver services more effectively if it's done transparently and in the right way. It can expand access and reduce inefficiency if we get it right. That's why we're here. Our job is to ask, who built this, who benefits, who's being harmed, and what happens when something goes wrong. This matters most for the people on the ground, our city workforce. If they don't understand how AI is being used, if they're not trained, if their feedback isn't being actively heard and integrated, then we're building brittle systems with no accountability. Take ACS, for example. If frontline workers don't know why a family is flagged as high risk, and the answer is something like a parent grew up in foster care, then we are not just embedding bias, we're institutionalizing it. AI models don't just reflect values, they define them. And without transparency or the ability to dissent, we risk locking in bad assumptions and calling it progress. We need public systems that are built for responsiveness, not just efficiency. That means real-time feedback loops. That means public oversight. That means asking not just whether a model is accurate, but whether it's serving the public good and who gets to define that. We can't keep reacting to the effects of AI after harm has already occurred. We must proactively shape how these tools operate, build them to reflect our values, and design them to adjust when they fail. Because the alternative, letting automation quietly reshape our public institutions without public input, is not governance, it's abdication. As chair, I've tried to bring that lens to everything we do, and today's hearing is part of that ongoing work. Because technology doesn't belong to CEOs or engineers alone, it belongs to all of us. And if it's going to shape our future, then our voices need to shape that too. I want to thank the Tech Committee staff, Policy Analyst Eric Brown, Ledge Counsel Irene Bayofsky, Chief of Staff Anya Lear, Legislative Associate Victoria Peters, our fellow Josemary Ochoa Cruz for their work in preparing for today's hearing, and I want to recognize Committee Member Eric Botcher, and anybody else who have joined us from the Tech Committee today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chair Gutierrez. I will now turn to Councilmember Williams for her opening statement.
Good afternoon. Artificial intelligence is no longer a concept of the future. It's in our workplaces, our schools, and our government, and for many, it's raising real questions about privacy, fairness, and job security. The truth is, AI is already here. That's why we need to understand how it's being used, assess its impact, and ensure it's not undermining the right or voices of working people, especially those in public service. That same technology is being used in our city systems too. Civil servants are encountering AI in hiring platforms, shift scheduling, and performance tracking tools, sometimes without even knowing it. And while these tools are often marked as neutral or efficient, we know they can replicate bias, obscure accountability, and quietly shift the power dynamics of the workplace. Intro 1066 is a response to that reality. This bill would establish a dedicated task force bringing together agency leaders, technologists, labor voices, and civil service employees themselves to examine how AI is being used across city government and how it's impacting the workforce. The task force would meet regularly and stay engaged not as a symbolic body, but as an active mechanism for oversight, data sharing, and accountability. Just as importantly, it would create a formal channel for workers to report how AI is showing up in their day-to-day jobs, what's helpful, what's harmful, and where guardrails are urgently needed. We cannot afford to treat these changes as inevitable or invisible. We need to study them, understand them, and plan for them. This bill is about protecting people, not just adapting to technology and making sure the future of our workforce is shaped by data, fairness, and public accountability. Thank you, chairs.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Williams. We now turn to Majority Leader Farias for her opening statement.
Thank you, Chair De La Rosa and Gutierrez and my colleagues for the opportunity to speak on Resolution 860, which calls on the Department of Citywide Administrative Services to include a qualifying practical exam in the civil service testing process for municipal painters. This legislation is the result of a meaningful and necessary call to action from the District Council 9 of the International Union of Painters and Allied Trades. I want to thank them for their advocacy, partnership, and leadership in helping to shape a solution that centers worker quality, job readiness, and public accountability. Currently, the city's hiring process for painters relies solely on a multiple choice test and an education and experience application. Far too often, this method fails to accurately assess hands-on skills that are essential to the trade. We only learn that someone isn't qualified after they've been hired, when they show up to a job site and can't perform the basic tasks at hand. That inefficiency wastes city time, money, and disrupts project timelines. Resolution 860 offers a straightforward fix. Maintain the existing written exam, but require that all candidates who pass it proceed to a practical skills evaluation. This second stage would ensure that they can physically demonstrate the proficiency necessary to be certified as municipal painters. To further strengthen fairness and accuracy in the hiring process, the resolution also recommends a minimum passing score of 70% on the practical exam, a clear full-time equivalent formula for converting part-time experience so all applicants are evaluated equitably, and crediting graduates of non-certified painter apprenticeship programs with 1 full year experience, recognizing the rigor and job readiness of those programs. While DCAS has already had the authority to design the structure of these exams, this resolution sends a strong message. It's time to adopt higher, trained-aligned standards in civil service testing. A 2-stage process, written and practical, ensures we are hiring painters who are not only knowledgeable, but capable of doing the work from day one. Ultimately, this is about raising performance standards, safeguarding public resources, and ensuring excellence across our municipal workforce. Thank you for your time and consideration today. I respectfully urge your support of this resolution to promote fairness, efficiency, and professionalism in city hiring. Thank you.
Thank you, Majority Leader. We now turn to Councilmember Brewer for her opening statement.
Thank you very much. I'm talking about Intro 1235, and what it would do is require Doris, which is a wonderful agency headed up by Commissioner Pauline Toole, to create a centralized Freedom of Information request website, which exists, but it does need some help. It would receive, track, update, and post responses to agency FOIL requests. It would also require the commissioner to formulate performance guidelines for agencies based on the FOIL response statistics for each agency, and to convene meetings of agency FOIL officers regarding the implementation and updates. The reason we're doing this is a couple. Number one, reInvent Albany introduced their report in 2025 called Freedom of Information Law, and it felt that there was not enough response to FOILs. According to the report, the public can wait months or sometimes years for city agencies to provide the records they requested. About 15% of the FOIL requests submitted in the first quarter and second quarter of 24 was still open 1 year later. The slowest agencies, according to the report, which I have right here, are the Department of Correction, which averages 485 days, and the Mayor's Office, which averages 283 days. These agencies need the most public scrutiny. The intro is designed, as I said, to bring transparency to FOIL request processing across all agencies, making it easier for the public to track and access government records and to hold agencies accountable. I think we all feel that transparency and accountability are not optional in government. And I just want to mention groups like the Foreign Press, reInvent Albany, Beta NYC, Citizens Union, the New York Civil Liberties Union, the New York City Bar, the Legal Aid Society, the League of Women Voters, Common Cause, and others are supportive of this intro. And I want to thank Sam Goldsmith from my office, Andrea Vasquez, and Elliot Heister from the Speaker's Office, Legislative Affairs. Thank you very much, both chairs.
Thank you, Councilmember Brewer. We have also been joined by Council Members Feliz and Salam. We will be hearing testimony from representatives of the administration, and I now turn to the committee counsel to administer the oath for this panel of administrative officials.
We will now hear from the administration. Before we begin, I will administer the affirmation. Panelists, please raise your right hand. I will read the affirmation once and then call on each of you to individually to respond. Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth before this committee and to respond honestly to council member questions? Thank you.
You may begin.
Good afternoon, Chair Gutierrez, Chair De La Rosa, and members of the City Council Committees on Technology and Civil Service and Labor. My name is Alex Ford, and I am the Executive Director of Research and Collaboration under the Office of Technology and Innovation, or OTI. With me is Prince Gupta, OTI's Associate Commissioner for Application Engineering. Thank you for the opportunity to discuss our areas of expertise with the committees today and for holding a hearing on this timely topic. For those not familiar with our work, OTI has led the charge on the city's broad approach to artificial intelligence, or AI, policy and governance. Our AI Action Plan, which was released in the fall of 2023, is the first major step in developing a framework for city agencies to carefully evaluate AI tools and associated risks, help city government employees build AI knowledge and skills, and support the responsible implementation of these technologies to improve the quality of life for New Yorkers. We crafted this plan, the first of its kind for any major U.S. city, with feedback from 18 agencies alongside expert insights from industry and academia. The plan introduced a set of phased actions for the city to complete, which would enable agencies to evaluate risks and determine whether a tool is the right technology to deliver better positive outcomes for New Yorkers. As of now, we have initiated or completed most of the 37 actions as described in the AI Action Plan. With respect to the impact of AI on the municipal workforce, we've consistently taken the position that the work we're doing is not intended to aid in the replacement of any city jobs with AI. Rather, we view AI as a tool to support our employees, to help free up more of their time to focus on the things that are most critical. Our objective is to prepare city personnel, whether they serve in technical roles or not, to effectively and responsibly work with and on AI. To that end, there is an initiative in the AI Action Plan dedicated to building AI knowledge and skills within city government, including 7 short and medium-term actions, including exploring and pursuing opportunities to foster information sharing across agencies and teams, identifying high-priority agency skills needs within the city's AI Steering Committee, assessing the landscape of internal and external resources to support AI knowledge-building efforts, launching initial knowledge-building efforts to plan the scope, structure, and priorities of new AI learning resources for city staff, exploring opportunities to bring AI talent into city government for limited-term projects, centrally tracking and sharing with agencies emerging tools, use cases, and considerations, and encouraging alignment on AI skills and duties to ensure city government job descriptions and civil service titles reflect the range of AI skills needed to support city efforts. While many of these efforts are in progress or complete, the action taken will continue to inform our work going forward. The AI Action Plan is intended to create the framework to guide uses and impacts of AI as the technology continues to evolve and become more ubiquitous. We will also continue to monitor AI policy and engage our intergovernmental partners at all levels as appropriate in this rapidly changing regulatory landscape for emerging technologies. I will now turn to the legislation on today's docket. Introduction 1066 of 2024 seeks to create an interagency task force to examine the impacts of artificial intelligence on civil service and civil service employees. We certainly agree that the impact of AI on the municipal workforce should be evaluated comprehensively, and this subject focus dovetails with much of the work we have laid out in the AI Action Plan. However, as written, we don't feel that the structure of the task force that Intro 1066 would create would produce the insights we collectively seek. We'd like to discuss further with the Council the ways in which we can collaborate to achieve the most useful outcome. Introduction 540 of 2024 would require OTI to assess the feasibility of a cloud-first policy in which the use of a cloud computing system would be given preferential consideration when city agencies are developing technology solutions, strategies, and operational deployment plans for any software program, mobile application, or data storage needs. We appreciate the Council's interest in the modernization of applications and storage solutions for the city. In practice, at least over the last several years, cloud has been overwhelmingly the best solution for a large number of projects, and we have significantly expanded our portfolio with cloud-based solutions. Cloud was preferred over on-premise technologies for a variety of reasons, and ease of deployment, scalability, prepackaged solutions, cost, and ability to upgrade as technology evolves are among them. This preference is in line with a trend of offerings from companies that provide products that serve the needs of agencies seeking more modern, agile platforms. That said, we don't believe a feasibility assessment of a cloud-first policy would be useful. We already know from experience that when developing requirements for new application or evaluating a proposal from another agency, it is not beneficial to limit the specific kind of technology utilized to fulfill a need. Thank you once again for the opportunity to testify today. We will now take members' questions.
Thank you. If you could also submit a copy of the testimony for us to have. Any other agencies? Yes, you can go ahead.
Good afternoon, Chairs De La Rosa and Gutierrez, and members of the Committees on Technology and Civil Service and Labor. My name is Pauline Toole, and I am the Commissioner of the New York City Department of Records and Information Services, commonly known as DORIS. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today on the proposed local law to require a publicly accessible portal for Freedom of Information Law FOIL requests. This administration is committed to ensuring that government is open, accessible, and transparent so that residents of New York City can engage with city government in a meaningful way. Providing access to government records helps accomplish that goal. The Charter gives DORIS 3 responsibilities related to city records. The municipal archives, accessions, preserves, and makes available city government's historical records, which mostly are the unpublished records of government agencies and officials. The municipal library preserves and makes available the published records of city government, and the records division sets record retention policies and works with agencies to modernize the management of their records in all formats. Intro 1235 would amend Chapter 72 of the City Charter, the DORIS chapter, to require the agency, in consultation with the Office of Technology and Innovation, develop and maintain a publicly accessible online portal to intake and process requests made pursuant to Article 6 of the New York State Public Officers Law, commonly called FOIL. The proposal would require the portal to include several data points in a machine-readable format, permit full-text searchability of all requests and responsive records, include an application programming interface, or API, issue automatic notifications of determinations provided to any person, list all records access and appeals officers at each agency, provide a variety of statistics, and post all responsive records. Further, it would require all agencies to provide a link to the portal on their websites and enter any FOIL requests received by agencies via other methods into the portal. It also requires consultation with the Office of Operations and public hearings on possible metrics, regular meetings with records access officers, and the development of an implementation plan to be submitted to the mayor and speaker. DORIS appreciates the Council's interest in providing access to public records via an online portal. In fact, the department developed an open source Freedom of Information Law portal that launched in 2015 as a pilot and subsequently has become the primary point for public access to city agency records. The genesis of the Open Records portal is a report issued by then Public Advocate Bill de Blasio in 2013, rating city agencies' FOIL practices. The report revealed the many difficulties members of the public faced in accessing public records, waiting years or forever for acknowledgement of the request or the actual records. Because the DORIS mission is providing information to the public and government officials, we teamed up with the Office of Technology and Innovation's predecessor agency to use open source code to develop a one-stop site to submit and respond to FOIL requests. Currently, 53 agencies use the portal to receive and post responses to FOIL requests. We will soon onboard the New York County District Attorney's Office. There have been more than 526,000 FOIL requests filed on the portal, and 475,000 have been processed by agency staff. Our existing portal meets many of the requirements set forth in Subdivision B of Section 3012 of the New York City Charter that would be created by the proposed local law. It offers a one-stop one-stop site for people to file requests for public records. It provides a unique identifier and shows the date each request was submitted and acknowledged and the expected response date. The portal publicly posts the agency's determination of a request, and when the request is denied entirely or in part, the exemptions cited under the Public Officers Law to deny the request. Similarly, the portal already fulfills several of the requirements set forth in Subdivision C of proposed Charter Section 3012. It allows agencies to acknowledge receipt of a request within 5 business days, enter into dialogue with the requester, provide a summary response that includes the reason a request was denied, citing the relevant exemptions under state law, and upload records to which access has been granted. Prior to development of the portal, an individual might have sent a request to an agency and not ever know if it was received or being acted upon. The portal provides that information up front. The Open Records portal allows the public to filter search results by agency, dates, and the status of the request. The requests and responsive records can be filtered by additional categories, as the bill contemplates, but this would require additional programming time. The proposed local law requires access to data about utilization of the portal disaggregated by agency. Please note that the number of requests received and closed is currently available. Additional statistics described in the proposed law could be made available, such as the average resolution time, the number of requests granted or denied in whole or in part. This too would require additional resources. The proposed requirement to post monthly statistical updates would be unnecessary because the data already is available in real time. It's important to note that many documents are covered by personally identifiable information protections. For example, a person's school records from the Department of Education can be obtained by that person via FOIL. City agencies use open records to receive and respond to these requests, but they do not post them to the public. As a result, the proposed requirement for all records to be made publicly available on the site with full-text search capability would be problematic. The DORIS application development team constantly makes improvements that help requesters find the right agency and improve the usability for agency end users. The proposed local law includes requirements that are not currently deployed on open records and which would require additional resources to implement. For instance, the portal does not currently track information on appeals to agency appeals officers. That information could be included, but would require additional implementation resources. The proposal also would require information related to Article 78 cases filed in civil court to challenge the denial of a FOIL request, including whether a case was filed, the attorney's fees assessed, if any, the dates of the judicial decision, and any subsequent appeal, and a machine-readable copy of the records released through this process. These requirements are not feasible for DORIS to implement since the information is not tracked at a central location in the court system. Another requirement that would necessitate substantial resources would be the development of an application programming interface, or API. This would require building a parallel application stack to meet the extensive reporting, full-text search, and application programming interface requirements. At a minimum, the additional personnel resources implicated by this requirement would include a solutions architect and a full-time developer to develop and maintain the new application stack. Duplicating the content will also substantially increase our cloud budget. And finally, there are many security ramifications of enabling an API, including access tokens, rate limiting, and the redaction of personal identifying information, which would require additional expertise. As written, the proposed local law would enshrine the existing online FOIL portal, open records in local law, and give DORIS responsibilities that the agency cannot presently fulfill. Additionally, there are a few terminology changes we suggest. First, using the term records access officers instead of freedom of information law officers. And second, including the option for the portal to be cloud-based and not solely maintained on a website. We do commend the City Council for its focus on records access and would be happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Good afternoon, Chairs De La Rosa and Gutierrez, and members of the City Council's Committee on Civil Service and Labor and Committee on Technology. My name is Katrina Porter, Deputy Commissioner for Human Capital at DCAS. Thank you for the opportunity to speak before the committee. DCAS is always looking for ways to improve our service delivery to make city government work for all New Yorkers, and that includes automating processes. Primarily in human capital, our automation efforts have been people-focused with decreasing processing times for exam candidates so that they can get their scores and test results faster and get on a list sooner and be picked up and ultimately be picked up for an agency job. Our automation efforts have also helped us to be more sustainable by eliminating paper and utilizing electronic resources where possible. Additionally, we have implemented automation efforts to bring the civil service into the 21st century and make systems more accessible online to the public. As we integrate automation where feasible, it is important to note that our services have always been human-centric, and it is our intention to have them remain as such. Within DCAS, and particularly in human capital, we are striving to nurture and champion the value each worker brings to the City of New York. To achieve this, we manage multiple programs that provide pathways to a sustainable and fulfilling career in public service. More than that, we administer our bridge exams, including the recent addition of public safety titles to eliminate cumbersome requirements and provide opportunities to enter into the city's workforce. And we also manage the city's employee self-service, the help desk, and the customer experience call center, and the NYC job page, all of which are employee-centered services. At DCAS, we are committed to recruiting and retaining top talent by helping them be more productive through the automation of processes, not to replace employees with automated tools. DCAS does not have any plans to implement automation or AI tools that would replace employees. As we turn to the legislation, DCAS is here to comment on 1066. We appreciate and understand the Council's concerns regarding the impacts of artificial intelligence on the future of municipal work and the city's workforce. We stand committed to providing municipal employees with a platform for sharing their experiences and for disseminating that information with relevant government partners. The administration believes a focused and coordinated evaluation in this space can have a positive impact on the workforce, but we recommend further dialogue between DCAS, OTI, and the City Council on this topic. Thank you again for allowing us space in this forum. We are here should you have any questions directed to DCAS, but would defer to our colleagues at OTI regarding AI and its use across city agencies. Thank you.
Thank you all for coming and testifying. I'm going to ask a few questions, and then I'll turn it over to Chair Gutierrez. And then I want to recognize also, before we get there, that Councilmember Dinowitz has joined us as well. Welcome. Some of my questions are obviously for DCAS, and I know that you're going to defer to the colleagues, so if it's appropriate for anyone on the panel to respond, that's fine. But as AI use across city agencies continues to grow, what role DCAS specifically do you envision for the agency in being helpful in building a safe, ethical, and well-managed ecosystem for this technology?
So we're here to support OTI in its efforts to build a framework around AI, and that can be through training or, org development structuring. Mm-hmm. But OTI can definitely speak more about the efforts that are underway currently.
Yeah, thank you for that question. So our focus, as I said in testimony, is on supporting the city's workforce in their ability to work with and on AI tools, focusing not only on technical staff, so those who themselves may be doing engineering, development, the sorts of efforts that are related to building and implementing tools, but non-technical staff too. Think about budget lawyers, people who may be interfacing with tools, so that everybody has a foundational understanding about what these tools can do, what does the technology actually permit underneath all of this, and create that baseline understanding, shared terminology, shared perspectives on the tools and what they can and cannot do. We have a number of different initiatives, like we said, that we're initiating to be able to move that work forward, including a partnership with agencies like DCAS.
And the ethical component, is that something that is part of your framework?
Yeah, so the entire action plan is premised around responsible use, and responsible use leading to the principles and definitions that we drafted in 2024. So included within those principles and definitions is our commitment to social responsibility and the fair and responsible use of AI tools.
Great. And when it comes to recruitment of a workforce that is trained to use AI, we have titles across the city like chief information officers, chief technology officers, program managers, procurement staff. How are we working to build the literacy around AI and automation in decision-making systems?
Yeah, again, an excellent question. That's sort of at the core of what we're trying to understand. So one of our initial efforts was to survey agencies and better understand from them what they perceive their skills needs to be. And universally what we heard was AI literacy. So this basic need for city staff to go beyond just what they're hearing in the day-to-day conversations around AI and better understand what these tools, how they work, what they can actually do, et cetera. And so what we're creating or starting to create now is an effort that can be utilized across the entire city workforce, thinking about not just one specific job set or one specific skill set, but broadly applicable, and then to follow up with things that are more specific and more tailored as needed.
Great. And I know, DCAS, you testified that the plan is to stay human-centric, which is good to hear, but as we begin to see the proliferation of AI, has DCAS begun to plan for possible job displacement or job redesign, the upskilling of workers in high-risk job categories? Have you identified what those categories would be?
So we will work with OTI to determine what, if any, of those titles would be, after they've completed their, initial work around building a framework for AI.
And your question raises another really interesting point around, what is automation, what is AI, how do these things relate, where do they not relate? And so that's another component of having a better landscape of, what are we talking about in terms of the technology and its potential impacts? What are we talking about in terms of the specific job set, the specific jobs and skill sets associated with those? So we need to be able to look at that diversity on both sides of the equation, the technology itself and then the jobs.
Mm-hmm. As you look at the types of jobs that exist in the city, and I'm sure you're working in partnership, have you all looked at some of the titles that may be at risk?
So our focus to date has really been more globally understanding, again, the basic needs, or the foundational needs, I should say, that agencies have. Mm-hmm. So understanding, where IT teams need skills that are hard, quote unquote, hard skills to support development, engineering, et cetera, where the literacy skills are needed. And our focus has been on working with agency partners to better understand the needs with respect to their particular missions and agencies. We're going to keep digging through and analyzing at a deeper level to know where specific agency needs are, but we really want to start with that global view and better understand what is needed for the city overall.
Mm-hmm. Great, and DCAS knows one of my favorite topics is the civil service exam. I'm wondering if there's been conversation and exploration as to the impact of AI on civil service. We often talk about vacancy rates in agencies and how we're looking to fill them. So what has been the conversation around the civil service exam?
Again, I think that most of our conversation has been thinking about the workforce in its totality. So obviously civil service is a component of that in terms of how people find themselves in particular roles, exams, et cetera. But we want to make sure that we're dealing with the key components of skills first and then applying that to what the existing frameworks are.
So I'm kind of hearing like we're not there yet is kind of the vibe, right?
There's a lot more that we can and want to be doing and are doing currently to better understand the particulars. Again, we've done a lot of foundational setting by doing our agency surveys, building out speaker series and other sorts of opportunities to directly upskill the workforce, but we're still lots to do. Lots to do.
I guess for me, the challenge that I'm having as we're having this conversation is that AI is already here. And, while I understand that the implementation is a long road, I could imagine even people that are studying to take civil service exams, looking at city jobs, are already utilizing AI to kind of help them on that road. And so I'm wondering if we're falling behind as we look to enforce some of the laws that, granted, are newer laws that the city council has passed and others, in order to have a workforce that is prepared, but also agencies that are prepared to kind of deal with that innovation.
Yeah. The good thing is that the city's workforce is already very prepared. So the city's been using AI for a very long time. The term AI is sort of more recent in the more kind of national conversation, but refers to a lot of technologies that have been around for a while. And we see from public reporting that agencies have really been involved in this work for quite some time. We have a very capable and innovative workforce that is building out new tools that already supports the work that they're doing. So, the work that we're thinking about is that keeping up with the evolving state of AI, the technology, the policy, et cetera, and making sure that we're responsive to those changes.
Great. Thank you. I'll come back for some more questions, but I want to pass it to Chair Gutierrez.
Thank you, Chair. Good to see you again. All right. My first question is if OTI, since we last chatted, I think it was October, was the hearing, has OTI developed any mandatory training for city workers, especially those already using AI tools?
So the training that we're developing right now is intended to be available for the full workforce and for those who are interested in learning more to be able to find resources that help them understand these sort of foundational layers of AI. We'll be building out then additional resources to help, as I said, with some more specific training as time goes on.
And what is the timeline?
We're hoping to launch our training by the end of the summer.
At the end of the summer. And you said it's going to be available to the entire city workforce?
That's the goal.
And is it going to be required? Is it mandatory?
That's not envisioned at the moment.
That's not?
Envisioned.
Okay, so how do you imagine that folks will take this training? They'll just...
It will be offered to everybody, and we'll be doing an engagement effort to make sure that city agencies know that this training is available, that the platform is accessible and available for employees. But my comment is that at the moment, we're not envisioning requiring it for employees.
Okay. Is there any aspects of the training, just top level, that you can share today?
Sure. So our very first goal is going to, again, be sort of level setting. So what is AI? How do we make sure that when a city employee hears that word, that they're thinking about it in a way that is consistent with the way that we think about it at OTI, but then also usable. The AI itself is quite a complex topic. So how can we sort of provide the workforce with a shared language and shared vocabulary around AI, share a little bit more about how these tools actually work to demystify a little bit of the inner workings of them, and then to provide some working examples of what that looks like in practice.
Is there any part of the training that is specific to that city worker's job?
Sorry?
Is there anything specific, anything in the training that you're developing now that is specific to, let's say, whatever a city worker, whatever their job is, signs up for this training? Is there something that will be specific to their job?
The goal with the initial trainings will, again, be sort of universal access, so that it's not going to be job role specific. It will be open and available to everybody, but it is intended to be focused on the role that AI plays in the workplace.
And
so
it's is it like a one-day training, couple hours?
It'll be a recorded training. A recorded training. That can be
Okay, so they'll complete it at their own speed?
Yeah.
Is that what it is? Okay. Regarding the action plan, curious, I know that obviously we had a hearing and I've reread it as a refresher. Can you share with me, you had different agencies participate in the development, both, agencies internal and then you had advocates external. Has there been a system to ensure that more city workers are reading through this action plan, or what has that looked like since it was first launched?
Sure. So there's a couple different ways to think about that. One is that all of our outputs are available publicly, so city workers and the public can see those. We have a centralized website for all of the work.
But I have to know it exists to go look for it, correct?
We've been getting the word out there as much as we can. That's the other thing.
What are you doing? How?
Sorry?
How are you getting the word out there is my question.
So the other thing that we've been doing is meeting a lot with agencies directly. Sometimes that's with agency leadership. Sometimes that's with specific business teams who may have questions or projects that they're interested in doing. And every time we have a chance to engage with agencies, we want to be able to plug those resources that are available to them.
Okay. And has there been any feedback in the and are you at these meetings, or how does the conversation around the plan look like?
So there's a lot of different parts of OTI that can be involved in agency conversations around AI projects. In some cases, like my colleague from applications would be supporting agency work. Obviously, we're helping to steer the overall strategy through the action plan. So when agencies are interested in learning more about, what AI could be doing for them, what are some of the considerations that they should have, we meet with them and talk through their specific needs and help provide a path forward.
And is there any plan to update the action plan, considering that you are meeting with agencies and different folks?
Yeah, we'll have an annual progress report that will come out in October, aligned with the second anniversary of the action plan.
Okay. And is the intention after every annual progress report to kind of do the same set of meetings, or is it now second, third year in, it's really up to different agencies and cities workers to bring that up with OTI?
Sure. So there's a lot of different specific dynamics for how these could work. We have our standing steering committee meetings, the AI steering committee, which is a standing body of agencies who meet with OTI to help inform on sort of direction and strategy. OTI in general meets with agencies on a constant basis based on their needs and their specific projects. So that sort of agency engagement is going to be always ongoing.
How often does the steering committee meet?
Quarterly.
Quarterly, okay. Now, I want to bring up this question because there was some coverage about ACS's use of predictive algorithms. And so their algorithm is one of the most high-stakes systems in a city government. Can you confirm if you've conducted any of these conversations around the AI action plan, or any trainings with ACS staff who interact with or are affected by this tool specifically?
We have not conducted training with ACS.
You have not?
No.
I'm sorry, the acoustics are really bad in here, so I apologize
I'll go
if I'm
closer.
making you repeat yourself.
No, sorry, maybe I'm far away. We have not done any dedicated training with ACS.
No. Is that a training that you can do?
We're always available to support any agency that needs it. And again, the training and resources that we want to be creating by way of the action plan are intended to be used by all agencies.
Okay. And are you familiar with the predictive algorithm tool that I'm referring to that ACS
I'm
is using?
familiar with some of the tools that they report via Local Law 35.
Okay. And do you think do you think that it's like a safe tool to use? Do you think there's any danger in using a predictive risk model without staff who understand how it's being used? That my understanding of the staff that were being asked to intercept and kind of connect with these families because they were flagged by this tool was that they also had no idea why they were being flagged. Certainly, the parents and the families that were being impacted by this also had no idea why they were being flagged. So do you have a position, or is there something that OTI is doing more proactive in these instances? Because I do think it's harmful, first of all, that you are being flagged for a system that says they're using historic data. That could look like anything, and obviously for me that feels discriminatory. So is there something that you are all looking at specifically for ACS? Is there an ability for you all to be more proactive in this instance? Because if both the worker and the New Yorker doesn't understand why they're in this system, I think that's really harmful. So is there something that you all can do proactively, or have you thought about that?
Yeah, I appreciate the question. In terms of the specifics of ACS's systems, I would, of course, defer to them on decisions around how they arrived at those specific tools. I will say in general, like I said before, we want to be clear that the city's workforce has been using AI for quite some time. There's a lot of familiarity and real excellence in terms of how agencies have been using AI for many, many years now in a lot of different forms. Different agencies will have different needs in terms of their own workforces, what that workforce needs, what that workforce already has. And so we have not at this point assigned specific, other than what agencies have told us in terms of what they want to be able to do for their workforce. We need to follow their lead in terms of their skill set needs and gaps. We're here to support any agency, and so when something comes up, we're happy to do that.
Sure, and I agree. I think obviously their AI, the tools, and just the resources of AI overall is a spectrum, right? I think it's on all kind of the tools that we use on our phone. I'm specifically asking about predictive algorithms, and this is in the case specifically of ACS. So I would love to follow up on that. I'm going to move because you just gave me a really good transition to engaging with agencies about the AI tools that they're using. Local Law 35, as you know, from 2022 requires that they report annually. Can you tell me if you are all, as OTI, being engaged with the agencies about these tools before the report goes out? Yes, can you confirm whether that's happening?
Yeah, we do. We talked a little bit about this, like you said, at the last hearing, but essentially Local Law 35, that work is coordinated out of OTI. Every agency is responsible for identifying the tools within that agency that meet the definition for reporting and assembling those. We provide guidance for agencies both on the process and helping to understand the language from the law and what systems could qualify for reporting. And then, of course, OTI centralizes the preparation of the final report and makes it available both publicly on our website, but then also through the open data platform. So we engage agencies before the actual reports are due. Those are due statutorily on December 31st every year, but we engage with agencies several months before that.
And do you think that agencies in these conversations before the report are including everything to the best of their ability?
Yeah, again, the onus is on the agencies to understand what the law requires. We provide them with guidance on how to understand the applicability of that law for their systems, and provide guidance on specific cases where they're wondering if those criteria are met. At the end of the day, agencies are responsible for that decision and reporting that to us.
So the state comptroller's report, were you able to read it? Where it was an audit, excuse me, on their reporting. Were you able to review that? Because there were some, I think that they highlighted some inconsistencies where agencies were certainly not including some of the tools that they were using. Are you aware of the audit that I'm referring to?
From several years ago?
I think it was from last year, from 2024, I think it was released.
Yes, I think I know which one you're talking about.
Okay, and so in that audit, they mentioned that the DOE failed to report a specific tool, DOB as well. What is the process for when you, and I understand it's up to the agencies to really put everything in, submit everything in this report, but what is the process for a TI when you find out that tools are not being included in the report, that they're not being submitted?
Yeah, so as you said, the sort of basis of the bill is that agencies need to be able to self-report and identify the tools in their systems that meet the definition. We do provide guidance for agencies, not only on which tools would potentially meet the definition, but also some exercises on how to have those conversations internally with those agencies.
And I'm sorry to interrupt, but OTI does not audit whether everything that they've submitted is complete.
That's not a component of Local Law 35.
Okay, it's not a component of the bill, so that's why you don't do it. But now that you know it's in the state audit, what happens?
So again, our process every year for working with agencies on Local Law 35 is to remind them of the requirements and provide them with usable guidance that helps them to do this reporting work.
Okay. But you can see how that's problematic because it's not really fulfilling the spirit of the bill. If the idea is for agencies to report on every single tool that they're using, there's a state audit that's saying they've omitted this, and OTI saying well, it's not part of, I'm helping you, the agency, figure out to the best of your ability how to report, but I'm telling you they're not reporting. So they're not following the law.
In general, there may be several reasons why agencies would not report an algorithmic tool. One would be foremost that it's not fully used yet for decision making, so maybe it's in development and hasn't actually been integrated into the way that an agency is doing work. So proof of concept or pilot or something along those lines. Another would be that its impact is not a material impact as defined by the law. So Local Law 35 requires all tools that have a material impact to be reported. And has a definition of what that means. And so some tools will be a little bit more behind the scenes sort of tools, supporting technology infrastructure, et cetera. And so those may not be part of Local Law 35 reporting.
Thank you. 1 second. Okay, I'm going to take a break to share some love, and we'll pass it to Chair De La Rosa.
Thank you. Councilmember Brewer actually has some questions.
Thank you very much, and I want to thank Commissioner Toole and Doris for the work that they've done and also for the suggestions of better terminology. I appreciate that a lot. So my first question is, right now, I know you have the portal, but who is is it your staff that's responsible for updating the status of the request, and how frequently is information on the portal updated?
Well, information on the portal is updated in real time. So when an agency records access officer responds, they enter the response, or they enter the time frame for making a response, and that is shown automatically. An agency records access officers enter the information responsive to the requests that they receive.
Okay, and does each agency have an account in order to submit a request, and do users receive updates regarding the status of their requests?
Each agency has designated users at different levels who can access the requests and respond to them. Frequently, so when the request comes in, the agency records access officer or someone on that team, if it's a large agency, will review the request and maybe acknowledge it and fulfill it almost immediately, or maybe acknowledge it within the requisite 5 days, and then frequently enter into a dialogue with the requester if the request is somewhat complicated, to be able to make sure they understand, and then they enter the time frame for responding to the request and issue the responsive record either on the portal or through other means.
And to the best of your knowledge, that seems to be working in terms of what you've heard, either anecdotally or otherwise?
Well, yes. I mean, we've met recently with agency records access officers and figured out some tweaks to sort of help resolve one problem they were facing, which was getting a substantial number of records requests that did not belong to them. So I know for Doris ourselves, we received many requests for NYPD records, and the development team sort of shifted the categories so any records for the NYPD would be driven toward them and not to all the other agencies. So that improves sort of, you know, how agencies, the volume of requests that are wrong that agencies get, and sort of will help us have better statistics. I think it largely works. I think there are things we can do to continue to enhance that both take development time and potentially additional development resources.
Okay. My list of those who are not participating is DDC, Health, Homeless Services, Parks, HRA, EDC, H&H, and NYCHA. And I don't know if that's true. If they're not participating, I don't know why, but also how does the public FOIL from them? Do they have to go to those agencies, or how does that work?
Well, several agencies had been using the portal, and in the wake of COVID, they stopped using the portal, and we're working with them to try and bring them back into the system. As for NYCHA and HHC, they're not city agencies. They're non-mayoral agencies. They are, you know, so they
have their own
they
system.
don't fall under our area of responsibility at Doris.
But Parks and HRA, et cetera, do. So how are they not part of it? Do you have a list of those that are not part of it, that are city agencies?
Parks, I can get you the list. I don't want to make a misstatement, but certainly HRA, DHS, Parks, and DDC had been using the system, and now they have parallel systems of their own that they use.
Okay, well, that's a problem, in my opinion, so we need to work on that. Okay. What role does OTI play? You talked about it a little bit in the operation of the portal.
OTI was instrumental in helping us build the portal initially and provided a great level of assistance and guidance. Currently, the portal is maintained on servers. We're in the process of moving it to the cloud, which requires extensive security review that is underway, and we work very closely with OTI and Cyber on that process.
Okay. And do you get, as Doris, copies of the actual FOIL responses? The reason I ask is because if you'll hear testimony, and I mentioned a couple of long-time non-responses from the mayor's office and correction. I mean, that's the problem. So how in other words, do you get the answers to know that this is such a long time frame? I think that's what our challenge is, and I know I'm out of time, but how do we improve the time response by these agencies? How are we going to do that?
Right. Well, just on the corrections piece, I'd like to say that they weren't using the portal. They were answering their records requests separately.
Okay.
That recently came back to the portal. So the time frame that's given as if for not responding or providing a response, the data is not accurate.
Okay, that was a pre-portal response is what you're saying.
Yes, something
Okay.
like that. And so, no, I mean, I can't, I mean, there are like close to 100,000 records requests submitted annually and growing all the time. And no, I don't see the requests, the responses. I only see the Doris appeals, not even the Doris responses.
Okay, all right. Just finally, I guess my final question is what do you suggest? Do you think being in the portal will help them get the persons responding, legitimate requests on a faster basis? Because that is the concern.
I think it does. I think, you can see where your request is, right? When you make it, you know it's there, you know it's been received, and you can track where it's going and eventually get your responsive record.
Okay, because it does seem to be that there are a lot of, and you'll see it from the testimony, situations, agencies that are on the portal that are not responding in a timely basis. So,
well, I would say to that, the timeliness factor is when the law was written, we were in a paper system and people had file cabinets. And now we are in an electronic system with such a large number of records that it's very hard for the records access officers to plow through them in the time frames that the law contemplates. Even the best, I mean, it takes more time, a lot of the time, unless the request is very specific and very simple. And I think that's merits looking at. I know that's a state level issue, but it does merit some review.
all right. Thank you, Madam Chairs.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Bottcher?
Good afternoon. In your testimony, you state that DCAS does not have any plans to implement automation or AI tools that would replace employees. If an employee isn't formally laid off, isn't it still a workforce reduction if a vacant position goes unfilled because that position has been automated?
So I appreciate your question. The difficulty in me responding is that DCAS, we don't have insight into agency vacancies, so it will be difficult for me to respond to that and how the agency would, either use or repurpose, any vacancies at their agency.
What about employees within DCAS proper?
Within DCAS proper, we have no, as I stated in our testimony, we have no plans of replacing employees with automation. With AI, our automation tools have been more about streamlining processes so that we can do things more quickly and more effectively.
Just for the sake of asking, if an AI tool could significantly improve public service delivery, faster processing, better outcomes, would DCAS still not implement that tool in the name of, because it might impact a job title?
Yes, difficult for me to respond to that. We're in the very early stages of understanding the impacts of AI on the work that we perform, other than, the automation projects that I spoke about in the testimony, automating our civil service processes, eliminating paper, making our processes more streamlined and, available to folks online. So we're not there yet, but we're, open to having further conversation.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm actually going to piggyback on that and push back because although maybe the task of agency vacancies is left to OMB, I'm sure as the hiring arm of the city, DCAS does get a reporting of what the vacancies on agency levels are in order to hire, correct?
So at a high level, we get information about vacancy rates across an agency, but not by title. So we're not privy to that information.
Okay. Does DCAS have the ability to request that?
we can reach out for it, but currently we don't receive it.
Okay. I just want you to follow our line of thinking about how that sounds counterproductive, right? If you're tasked with specifically recruiting talent to fill agency vacancies, then why isn't there a communication in order to say these are the titles that we, and I know the conversation happens, for example, in hard to fill titles, because you all have made it a point to come to the committee and say, when there's hard to fill titles, we try to make accommodations to get those titles filled.
Right, it's a collaborative effort, Chair De La Rosa, so we require input from agencies as to what areas they need support in recruiting and attracting top talent. The, approval of their vacancies and, that the level of effort that's needed, that's really at the agency level.
And when you are having that collaborative conversation, there isn't a conversation at this time about AI or automation in those discussions?
Not at this time.
Okay. Well, that's something for us to follow up with. And then I will say that, I am getting a contradictory sort of responses from y'all. On one hand, we're hearing AI has been around. The workforce has used AI for a long time. We know how to do that. Our workers, city workers know how to use it. And then on the other side, I'm hearing this is brand new. This is something that we're just starting. So which is it?
Sure, it's an excellent question, and I think what it points to is that there is a complicated relationship between individual AI systems and individual jobs, right? In many cases, the AI tools that you could find through public reporting, particularly, or even those that have been around for a long time, were always designed to support and augment the city's workforce and have been doing so. And what you may sort of see in terms of changes in workforce may not necessarily be a one-to-one relationship with specific tools or technology. So what we're focused on right now is sort of that layer of first understanding what skills are needed to make sure that the workforce is current and up to date. Two, what sort of impacts do we expect that to have on the city's existing workforce? And then three, how do we close the gap between those things? So I think that there's a lot of work, of course, that's been done to promote innovative use of AI. And like I said, it's been used for a long time. But sometimes those relationships between agency operations are seen at a much more aggregate level.
Okay, I think there's much more work to do here, but it would seem to me that as part of this plan, we do need to get some interagency coordination around, the vacancy situation that exists in our current workforce, right? That's a crisis that we have at hand. And like Councilmember Boucher was saying, there might be opportunities, right, to fill in some of the service gaps, but also in keeping with a robust workforce that keeps our city running, the human aspect of it. We need to be coordinating, and it seems to me like although I understand that for some aspects we're still in the beginning of that process, there's some major gaps here.
Well, certainly I can say that the coordination is something we absolutely agree with. DCAS is on our AI steering committee and has been part of that since it started. So we do have an opportunity to stay in the loop on those sorts of conversations. And as we move more action plan work forward, all of the relevant agencies for those various initiatives will always be part of that conversation.
Okay. I also want to ask a question to DCAS regarding Councilmember Williams' Bill 1066. The committee has frequently asked about the means through which city employees can reach out with grievances and concerns related to their workflow. Can you please share with us whether city employees can report concerns about being displaced by automation efforts or artificial intelligence, or concerns about their job roles being altered due to the use of automation in decision-making systems? If so, where do those reports go, and what actions can be taken to address employee concerns?
So in the human capital, there's no process in place for employees to report directly to us, but I'm sure they have access to their agencies, HR departments and relevant folks who would, review such claims.
Okay. All right. Okay, I'm gonna pass it back to Chair Brewer. She's the chair too, to ask a second round of questions.
Yeah, thank you very much again for Commissioner tool. So going back to trying to figure out how to get more timely responses, are mechanisms to ensure agencies respond to the requests in a timely manner? How do we track that? And also, obviously, in some cases, people are going to end up going to court with an Article 78. I know you indicated you can't track that because you don't have the court system. But can we figure out what is done on a timely basis? Does the portal do that? And do you monitor that? Because obviously you have been meeting, I think, with some of the agencies to try to get them to improve, and they have some suggestions how to tweak it. Yeah. But it does seem, even though they have to go through file cabinets that are full of paper, it does seem to me the outside world thinks that things are not being responded to on a timely basis, having to do with on purpose. That may not be correct, but that's not what we want. So the question is, how do you track it, and what do we do about it?
I would say initially that it's absolutely correct that the Freedom of Information law is hard for people to find all the responsive records, and the records access officers work really hard to get the information to the requester. It just does take longer than the law contemplates in many cases, but not always. The portal currently does show disaggregated by agency the number of requests and the number of closed responses. We could add additional information, so it could show the duration it takes to complete a response. It would just, as I said in the testimony, it just would require us time and programming resources to do it. And the data is there. It doesn't have to be, created. The data exists. It just making it accessible and doing the programming will take time.
Okay. I mean, but then I guess if there aren't responses in a timely basis, and I know people can get extensions, then is there any way of adhering? I mean, what happens to an agency who doesn't adhere to FOIL requirements? Is there any stick?
Councilmember Brewer, the great and powerful Doris does not have enforcement authority if an agency does not meet the deadlines set in the law. And even with the best attempt, sometimes things take longer.
All right, I appreciate it. I think there's work to be done, but I appreciate what you have accomplished thus far. I can just say that as government, as we know from the world that we're in, people are very concerned, particularly police department. They're the ones that gets most FOIL requests, and you'll hear about some drone requests in the future because that's current and information that people want. Yeah. So I think we have to figure out how we can do more, but I appreciate what you've done thus far. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Brewer. I have a couple more questions for OTI and then for Doris. For OTI, can you point to one instance where OTI flagged misuse or problematic deployment of an AI tool and taken some kind of action?
The way that we think about technology with respect to OTI is that it has a lot of different parts of it that touch different agency technology projects, and then a lot of different technology projects could have AI components, may be considered an AI project. So there's a lot of variability there in terms of what we think about as OTI's oversight and what an AI project may be. It's a little hard to provide a specific instance of one project with specific outcomes because there's a multitude of different review factors that go into that.
Well, so I'll pull directly from the action plan. I'm looking at Initiative 6, enable streamlined and responsible AI acquisition. And this is where develop AI-specific procurement standards to help with contracting. What does it look like in the example or world where an agency is engaging in the procurement of a tool and they're not meeting these principles that you've outlined in Initiative 6?
Yeah, that's a great question. So that particular initiative is still under development, so that's something that we're working on currently. So that 6.4, I think it is not yet complete, but we will be working on a way to better understand the role that procurement terms can help us support the responsible use of AI and how agencies can then bring that through to their procurements as well.
You said it's not completely fleshed out?
Correct. We're working on that now.
And what can you tell me about what it'll look like if an agency doesn't follow whatever guidelines you're still working out.
So again, I mean, there's a number of different ways that agencies get guidance and oversight from OTI for their projects generally. Sometimes, particularly in the space of cybersecurity or privacy, those are, derived from those mandates, often from law, that agencies must follow. And then sometimes agencies are seeking more advisory type work from OTI to help inform their project direction. So there's a number of different pathways through which agency projects could touch various parts of OTI to help guide the work that they're doing. So I think there's not a single mechanism there.
Okay. So just kind of going off of what you said, my concern in, for example, local law 35, which is what it mandates every single agency to report on AI tools, is that the intention of the law is for them to report on every single tool. And outside of the example that you gave where it may not necessarily be in use, so that's why they're not reporting it, but in the instances where they are in use and they're not reporting, what is OTI's role? Because you are essentially requesting this from every agency so that you can report, so that it does go live on your website.
Yeah.
What does OTI do?
So our role, again, is to be able to provide agencies with the information about what is required of the law.
I know you've said this, but you're not. But is there accountability between OTI serving as the agency that is publishing this report and the agency that has not fulfilled that?
Our accountability with the agencies is to comply with the law and provide the reported information by the deadlines.
But if they didn't submit it, they're not following the law. So, I mean, this is the example that I'm giving you specifically DOE. So it does not meet that scenario where they're not using it. It's the Teach to 1-360 tool. DOB, for example, allows third-party facade inspectors to use AI, and they're not necessarily providing any oversight. So I'm trying to find out who is responsible. If you're saying it's not OTI, I'm really bewildered, because I believe the executive order said that OTI coming together as OTI would be responsible for all of this. So I'm trying to understand who is responsible, because what we're trying to achieve is obviously the most transparency. And I've never said AI is bad. No one here has ever said it's bad, but we want it to be responsible. We want to make sure it's transparent for every New Yorker to understand. And when we're talking about DOE specifically, we had a whole joint hearing here. And there were parents who were excited to use AI, but not sure how it was being utilized for their students. So in my eyes, OTI's role is to ensure that every agency is reporting on every single tool. You're saying is we work with every agency to interpret the law to the best of our ability, but after that, after we publish it and it's in the ether, we've got no responsibility. I'm trying to find out if that's true.
So the responsibility for local law 35 content is the agencies. They are responsible for understanding what tools in their use meet the definition and must be reported. Our responsibility under Executive Order 3 that created OTI is to oversee the coordination of local law 35 compliance and to ensure that agencies are aware of their responsibilities under that law and to provide them with guidance to be able to complete that correctly.
Okay. Would you support legislation that gives OTI authority to enforce?
I think we're very happy with the way that Local Law 35 has provided really valuable insights to the public. It has provided really valuable insights to us and city agencies. We have found that city agencies learn a lot from one another's reporting under Local Law 35. We think that the compliance process that we use to help agencies comply with the law is working with the intended spirit.
What about the ability to enforce the recommendations made in the AI action plan?
Can you specify which recommendations?
So there's, and I know that this is still like a work in progress, but there's Initiative 4, for example, that focuses on skills in city government. You have specific outcomes at the hearing in October. I said, I'm so glad there's an action plan. Looks great. How are we ensuring that agencies are utilizing some of the recommendations that are made in this report? And I think your response was like, well, we did the report. And I'm just trying to create a thread here to understand this is a strong plan. I think the fact that you guys have a steering committee is great. And that's the exact discussion that we want to continue to have around AI. But what I'm trying to understand is who makes anybody do what? if it's not OTI? If it's not OTI, let me know who it is, but we have concerns because there needs to be checks and balances. And with this administration that is pushing a 10-year moratorium, I think New York City is responsible for creating those guardrails because our federal government is obviously not. And so I would love to know if it's OTI, and if it's not, you can tell me who it is.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. So the action plan consists of, I think, what we would describe as actions of a lot of different sort of nature, right? Some of them relate to governance, so building out the components of governance. Others relate to, say, training opportunities or research opportunities for us to do, more fact-finding around a given topic. Each of those actions sort of needs to be completed in a way that's suitable for how it's structured, and that means that agencies and we as OTI, sort of digest the outputs of that in different ways depending on what it is. Certain things like our AI principles and definitions, this is something that we published and encouraged all agencies to refer to, in particular thinking about where we want to have a more unified definition of AI that's used across the city. So that becomes a resource that agencies can access and go to. When we think about initiatives under the action plan related to Local Law 35, for example, some of the changes that we've implemented there are to better support agencies in complying with the law and providing information that helps them to make sure that they're reporting and that we have effective, meaningful transparency outcomes under the law. And then other initiatives will have, again, a completely different output, right? So when it comes to training and skill building, we want to make sure we're responsive to agency needs. OTI will be supportive of those and will drive the overall work of the action plan, but also does need to be aware of what agencies' specific needs are and what their goals are so that we can adapt and make sure that we're meeting them where they are.
Thank you. Obviously, I'm concerned about this bill and Local Law 35 and how people are responding to it. But in the example that I just gave, I'm clear on how you are using the bill, which is, you're engaging with these agencies to make sure they're doing, and they've got to self-report. So I just told you about this DOE tool. What happened? What changes about your conversation with DOE before this year's reporting, now knowing that?
Yeah, so to be clear, we talk with agencies both, like I said, as part of the compliance process. We talk to everybody and say, hey, Local Law 35 reporting is coming up. As a reminder, here are your requirements, et cetera. We also talk to agencies on an ad hoc basis when they need to.
Well, what changed with DOE specifically?
So what we often talk about with agencies when they're contemplating a project or thinking about something or asking about something is we have that lens of, is this something that Local Law 35 would apply to? Agencies we have found are very aware of Local Law 35 and its requirements. Now that
and was there any feedback from DOE regarding this tool, Teach to 1360?
Sorry, can you say that again?
Was there any feedback from DOE in your conversations about this tool, even before or after the report, Teach to 1360?
We have not talked to them specifically about that.
Okay. I hope that you do, because I think the state audit did a really good job, and I think New Yorkers just want to understand how these tools are being used. Like the ACS, the predictive tool the algorithm tool that I mentioned is obviously concerning. There are many AI tools that the DOE uses that I think are really helpful, and I think people just deserve to know how they're being used. And so now you know this because you said you read the audit. I'm repeating myself about this specific tool not being used. So I hope that there are conversations before this year's reporting with DOE that says, is this tool in use? Because it should be in the report. And so if you're admitting that agencies understand this bill, then I expect for this year's report to be a lot more robust and to have every single tool, and that there's not this kind of just overlooking of tools that agencies are using because you've done the minimum of engaging with agencies.
Yeah, we're happy to take that back.
Thank you. My last questions are for Doris. Thank you. According to the open records about page, agencies can post responsive records on the portal. However, based on the council's review, most of the closed requests do not have an attached record. Can you tell me why that is?
I think a lot of the records access officers fulfill the requests using the privacy setting, and so they don't make the record publicly accessible. I think there are a couple of things. Sometimes the records are governed by, they have personal information, they shouldn't be attached, they shouldn't be made public. And then I think we need to clarify with the records access officers what the rules around the privacy setting.
So is it, okay, so does it sound like, is it mainly just personal information that could potentially be in the record, which is why it's not included?
Right, a record that has personally identifiable information would not be put up on the portal
And is that
for public.
is that the only reason they're not attached?
I don't know. I know that the records are made available to the requester using one of two privacy settings. And why those are the settings chosen by the records access officers, I do not know.
Okay, we'd love to follow up on that.
I would too.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Chair?
Thank you. I wanted to ask sort of a general question, but what protections are in place for unionized workers impacted by AI deployment, and are unions part of the planning conversation?
At OTI, we have not spoken with unions directly about this, but again, the nature of the action plan work and the steering committee is that we would engage with the relevant agencies and partners as we do work that involves the goals and outcomes for those agencies.
You have something to add?
No, I was just going to add that, unionized staff absolutely have access to their, represented labor union to share, their feedback or, any concerns they may have.
What about with OLR? With OLR, the Office of Labor Relations, are they part of the conversation? Because OLR negotiates contracts with unions, so I would think that there's some conversation.
They're not part of the AI steering committee specifically, but we're happy to continue conversations with them.
Okay, I think that it would be important to add our unions as stakeholders. Obviously, they represent and they negotiate the contracts of our city workers, and as this technology continues to be introduced into the workforce, I think that they would be an important partner, so I would make that friendly suggestion. I also have a question that is very specific to the Majority Leader's Reso 860, that calls upon DCAS to develop and implement a qualifying practical exam for painters as part of a civil service testing process. The proposed practical exam for painters would mirror the exam that is currently administered for the glazers. Has DCAS considered implementing a practical exam for painters in the past? If so, challenges, barriers, what were identified?
So we have no comment on the reso today.
I know you normally don't comment on resos, but have there been challenges in the past with this type of implementation?
So what I can say is that the examination process is very complicated, and there are steps that are required to determine the test parts for an examination. So it's very difficult for us to respond on the resolution because there are other things that need to happen that kind of predict what the exam types would be.
Okay, and I know the administration usually does not comment on resolutions, but I will just say that the fact that the council is taking up this resolution is a symbol of our commitment to this workforce, to the painters of our city that are part and crucial to the continuation of building our city up. And so we appreciate you looking into this matter and getting back to us if there is anything that we can do to be supportive to this workforce. Okay, all right, well, thank you so much for being here and for testifying. All right, I now open the floor to public testimony. Before we begin, I remind members of the public that this is a formal government proceeding and that decorum shall be observed at all times. As such, members of the public shall remain silent at all times. The witness table is reserved for people who wish to testify. No video recording or photography is allowed from the witness table. Further, members of the public may not present audio or video recordings as testimony, but you may submit a transcript of such recordings to the Sergeant at Arms for inclusion in the hearing record. If you wish to speak at today's hearing, please fill out an appearance card with the Sergeant at Arms and wait for your name to be called. Once you have been recognized, you will have 2 minutes to speak on today's hearing topic regarding the impacts of automation in the city workforce. If you have a written statement or additional written testimony you wish to submit for the record, please provide a copy of that testimony to the Sergeant at Arms. You may also email written testimony to testimony@council.nyc.gov within 72 hours of the hearing. Audio and video recordings will not be accepted. When you hear your name, please come to the witness panel. For the first panel, we invite Alex Spiropoulos. I'm sorry for messing up your name, but please come up.
I can give you a thumbs up.
Rachel Faust, Malik Al-Shamari, Laura Moroff, and Sarah Roth. All right, once you're settled, you can begin in any order. Just make sure you identify yourself for the record. Thank you.
Folks kindly pointed to me, so thank you for letting me go first. Good afternoon, Chairs Gutierrez and De La Rosa, Councilmember Brewer, and I think the other members of the committee have left, but I appreciated seeing them here today. My name is Rachel Foss. I'm the Senior Policy Advisor for reInvent Albany. We advocate for more transparent and accountable New York government. We were involved with the 2012 Open Data Law and the initial creation of the Open Records Portal. We strongly support Intro 1235, sponsored by Councilmember Brewer, with 23 other co-sponsors in the council. We believe the legislation will dramatically improve agency responses to FOIL requests, and it's supported by 13 transparency, civil liberties, environmental, government watchdogs, and journalism groups who submitted a memo of support yesterday. The council has been a great champion of improving compliance with the Freedom of Information Law historically, and we're glad you are continuing that today. In 2014, at the request of then Borough President Brewer, there was a bill very similar to this one that we supported, and ultimately the Open Records Portal was created administratively. We appreciate that Doris has done great work building, maintaining, and improving the portal, but unfortunately, despite Doris's best efforts, agencies struggle to provide the public with timely and complete responses, and some agencies appear to actively resist disclosing public records. We submitted a report earlier this year that looked at response times. Unfortunately, 16% of requests submitted via open records were still open a year later in 2024. A number of agencies have very long response times. Unfortunately, we didn't know that the Department of Corrections stopped using the portal, so the time we have listed for them is probably higher than it actually is. But nonetheless, we do know agencies like the Mayor's Office take 283 days to respond, so the numbers are quite high. Our testimony goes into further detail in a number of these areas, and I'll be happy to answer questions, but we know the backlog of requests is huge. There's agencies with requests that are 9 years old in some cases, and that's just not acceptable for the public, and this bill would create greater accountability to let groups like mine help the council hold the agencies accountable for their response times.
Thank you so much.
Hello, my name is Sarah Roth. I'm a legal intern at the Surveillance Technology Oversight Project. We are an anti-surveillance group that advocates and litigates against discriminatory surveillance. We urge the council to modernize the Freedom of Information Law process by passing Intro 1235. When New York enacted FOIL in 1974, it promised broad and timely access to agency records, but today FOIL is more symbolic than functional. Requesters face excessive delays and a lack of transparency. Waiting months for a response is common, and some agencies average over a calendar year before responding to a request. When records are released, many agencies fail to publish them on open records. Delays stem not only from agency foot dragging, but from systemic dysfunction. FOIL departments are under-resourced and technologically outdated. Many agencies still treat FOIL as a paper-based process. Most don't log or track basic request data. And as a result, watchdogs and oversight bodies can't assess agency performance or help agencies improve in their processes. And without a centralized document repositories, requesters may duplicate efforts, wasting time on already filed requests. Thanks to already implemented and readily available tech, it is now easier and more affordable than ever to create a system where agencies can process, track, and publish records efficiently. Today, nearly all agencies accept electronic FOIL requests, and our city's open records portal is arguably the most advanced FOIL platform in the country. Yet, despite the existence of these tools, which drastically grow our government's capacity for transparency, our city agencies have not taken advantage of them. For example, the DOC has stopped using the portal. Intro 1235 will finally bring FOIL into the 21st century. It codifies and expands the Open Records portal, creating a centralized system that reduces delay, increases accountability, and enables citywide oversight. It will give New Yorkers, oversight bodies, and journalists comprehensive access to both public records and the data behind how those records are processed. STOP supports this intro as written. We have one minor recommendation: a brief delay between providing a requester with a response before publishing it on the portal. This delay will allow journalists to request a record for their reporting without fear that its publication will undermine their ability to break news. Overall, this intro is one of the most significant things that the council can do to improve government transparency. And while I have the committee's ear, I'd like to draw attention to some concerns with intros 140 and 1...
Can you please wrap up?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, I'm Laura Moraff. I'm a staff attorney at the Legal Aid Society, and I wanted to thank the chairs and the committee members for allowing me to testify today. I have submitted more detailed written testimony, but I just wanted to emphasize a couple points about 1235. And one is that this bill is really crucial to allow us to use FOIL to serve our clients. We need to know what government policies and practices are in place so that we know when, why, and how our clients are facing certain issues, and so that we know what kind of discovery should be available in criminal cases, and so that we know what kinds of policies to push for to make New York a safer and freer place for the clients that we serve. And our clients really deserve better than the system that we have right now, which doesn't allow us to access the records that we need when we need them. I outlined a few examples of the kinds of delays that we deal with routinely in my written testimony, so I won't go into so much details on those, but just to give you a sense, there are special expense budget contracts we requested more than 4 years ago, facial recognition records we've been waiting on since last November, just so many of these examples, and they're just, these endless delays are really sort of the rule rather than the exception. And I also just wanted to highlight the point that Intro 1235 will really cut down on duplicative work and time and costs for everyone. If released records were made available through the centralized portal as mandated by 1235, we wouldn't need to submit new requests for records that have already been released to someone else, and agencies wouldn't need to spend their time compiling those records again and sharing them with us directly. And along those same lines, making the records request and released records searchable is necessary to make the portal useful to us to see what's already been released, so that we don't have to ask the agency again to use its time to produce records that have already been produced to someone else. And so Intro 1235 is really a common sense measure. It's necessary for FOIL to work. It's necessary for us to be able to serve our clients. And I thank you for your time today and your work on this.
Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, Chair Gutierrez, Chair De La Rosa, and members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today. My name is Alex Varopoulos. I am the Director of Government Relations at Tech NYC, an organization representing more than 550 companies in New York. Our membership includes hundreds of innovative startups, as well as some of the largest tech companies in the world. We are committed to ensuring that the tech sector remains a leading driver of the city's overall economy, and that all New Yorkers can benefit from innovation. I'm here today to express our support for Intro 540, which will require the Office of Technology and Innovation to conduct an assessment of a cloud-first policy for technology systems. We commend the Council and Councilmember Brannon for considering this crucial bill, which will help ensure that our city government operates with efficient, effective, and secure technology. Cloud computing is no longer just an option. It's a fundamental driver of productivity and economic value across all sectors. Independent research shows that cloud services generated over billions of dollars in gross value added for U.S. businesses, with companies representing over 37 million jobs, stating that their model would not be possible without it. Cloud users reported 50% IT costs and savings, and software developers reduced development time by 25%. During COVID-19, 63% of businesses collaborated easily due to cloud tools, and 10% said that they couldn't have operated without them. The case for cloud in government is equally compelling. It makes government more efficient and effective and offers a significant budgetary savings. As we saw with New Jersey's court system during the pandemic, the cloud investment allowed them to stay fully operational even with 99% of staff remote. The cloud lets agencies pay only for what they need, eliminating costly physical hardware and saving capital costs. This is critical given the uncertainty surrounding the potential impact of federal decisions on the city's budget moving forward. Many states and even the federal government have successfully implemented a cloud-first policy. We believe it is time for New York City to fully embrace this common sense approach. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today.
Thank you all so much for being here.
I have one question, and thank you all so much for your support and your testimony. For Rachel, for example, and what do you think about the response that Doris gave regarding, like, yes, there's like a billion FOIL requests, and obviously this Councilmember Brewer's bill is a really seamless way of centralizing everything. But what do you make of the response being like hands in the air?
In terms of cutting down the time and whatnot. I mean, I think, you know, we are involved in work at the state level to fix the Freedom of Information law, but you can't fix when you don't know what the problems are. We don't even have the basic reporting to know exactly how long each agency takes because they don't all use the portal. If they did, we'd be better able to say, okay, well, mayor's office, maybe you need to staff up a little bit. Maybe you have to be more proactive releasing these records that people keep asking for over and over again. And, you know, I think the other sort of response to your question about when agencies, are they posting records that are public records? Our experience is that they're not, and the report we released earlier this year, we looked at a very common request, organizational charts for agencies. It was easy for us to search that. We know it's a public record. It was, you know, only a handful of agencies out of about 20 that actually published those. So that means somebody else, another reporter, is going to ask for the same thing over and over again. I think, you know, that's a waste of time for everybody. So the bill, by mandating agencies use it and mandating they publish these records proactively, it lets the public, it lets us hold them accountable better for those response rates. And with the publishing, it makes sure that, you know, we're doing things in the most efficient way possible. So those are just 2 points on that question.
Thank you.
All right, thank you to this panel. The next panel is Malik Al-Shamiri from the Independent Budget Office. And I apologize again if I mispronounce your name. Okay, you may begin.
This on? Hello. Good afternoon, Chair De La Rosa, Chair Gutierrez, and members of the New York City Council. I am Malik Al-Shamiri from the New York City Independent Budget Office. As you know, IBO is a nonpartisan, independent government agency mandated by the New York City Charter. IBO's mission is to enhance public understanding of New York City's budget, public policy, and economy through independent analysis. Access to data is one of the foundational elements of understanding the impacts of public policy. That access provides governments, external stakeholders, and the public with the ability to solicit a wide range of perspectives and ideas for how to improve government. Without access to data, the iterative process that is public policy and the perspectives that help shape that process become limited. It not only leads to a lack of transparency in government practices, but it stymies the effectiveness of government by limiting the policy dialogue. Transparency and data accessibility is an integral part in better informing the public and understanding the impacts of policies in order to refine them. IBO is supportive of efforts to strengthen, expand, or improve access to data and strongly supports efforts to make government more transparent for all New Yorkers. Thanks, and take any questions if you
Thank you. Councilman Brewer does have one question.
Yeah, thank you very much for your testimony. So that means that you're in support generally of Intro 1235, or am I missing something?
Generally, so as you know, we aren't policymakers, we don't make any recommendations, we don't support or endorse any piece of legislation, but generally speaking, we do support all efforts that are intended to improve government transparency and just access to data in general.
All right, thank you.
All right. Thank you so much.
Great question.
Yeah. Thank you so much for being here. The next panel is Devin Lomax, Richard Lipkowitz, Liliana DeLuca, and Rafael Espinal, and Nadria Pittman. Please approach the dais. All right, you may begin.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Chairwoman De La Rosa and Chairwoman Gutierrez. My name is Devon Lomax. I'm the Political Director at District Council 9, Painters and Allied Trades, representing over 11,000 hardworking men and women in the finishing trades industry, and we're here to express strong support for maintaining and expanding a comprehensive examination process for both written and practical for civil service painters. While education and experience are important for background information of a candidate, they do not fully qualify a candidate for the specific role of civil service painter without proper vetting and testing. This dual assessment system will play a vital role in ensuring that only the most qualified, knowledgeable, and skilled individuals are entrusted with maintaining and improving the lives in our public housing, shelters, and as well as workspaces and infrastructure of the agencies serving our city. First, the written examination is essential for assessing foundational knowledge. Professional painters in civil service roles must understand that not just how to apply paint, they are expected to have a solid grasp of safety protocols, surface preparation techniques, environmental regulations, proper use and disposal of materials, and understanding of lead and mold safe protocols, all of which are crucial for ensuring public safety and regulatory compliance. The written exam evaluates this core knowledge in a fair, standardized way. Second, the practical examination ensures hands-on competency. Painting in public schools, public buildings, hospitals, and other city facilities is not as simple or uniform task. Different surfaces, materials, and tools require different techniques. Quality workmanship is essential to the longevity of the work and safety of structures involved. A practical exam provides an objective way to verify that candidates are capable of high quality work, properly prepping surfaces, applying paint evenly, following safety standards, and demonstrating precision in their trade. Third, a dual exam process promotes professionalism and accountability. By both requiring written and practical demonstrations of skill, the city reinforces the message that civil service jobs are earned through merit and fitness. This not only improves public confidence in our workforce, but also boosts morale among employees who know their peers have met the same rigorous standards. Finally, it supports equity and transparency in hiring. The civil service system is founded on the principle of fair competition. Using standardized written practical exam minimizes the influence of personal bias or favoritism. Maintaining both written and practical examinations for civil service painters is not just about testing for skills, it's about upholding standards, ensuring public trust, and preserving integrity of our civil service system.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Good afternoon. I am sure that between the incisive questions by the tech chair and by Councilman Brewer and others, that you will help shape how AI is used and its impact upon the workforce. You will not be questioning, well, you might be, but you should not be questioning at the end. They did not respond quickly enough. You will help shape it. My experience with AI was at the Queens Tech Incubator. We were offering online a mentoring component about networking. I found they made it more accessible, and more tolerable. I don't know if this could have been done by individuals or through AI. So it can be a friend, not a monster, if we embrace it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Madam Chairs and the members of the committee. My name is Rafael Espinal, and I'm the Executive Director of the Freelancers Union, and we represent over 80,000 members here in the 5 boroughs of New York. I know the majority of today's hearing has been focused on the city agencies and its workers, but I would like to broaden the scope just a bit. AI represents one of the greatest disruptions to our city's workforce in recent history. Across industries, we have seen governments and corporations rapidly adopt AI tools, resulting in significant layoffs and increasing job insecurity. Unfortunately, these decisions often prioritize profits and savings over the welfare of workers and communities. I also had a chance to review the committee's report, and I realized that one group has been left out of this conversation: freelancers and creative workers, who contribute over $31 billion a year to New York City's economy and consist of more than 1.3 million New Yorkers. Independent workers are already on the front lines of AI's impact. Writers, designers, drivers, content makers, you name it, are watching their work get replaced by AI and automation, or being asked to create machine-made content for a fraction of what they're used to earn. Freelancers Union is in support of the bill introduced by Councilmembers Williams and Brewer, and I agree with you that the city must ask for data and force the city to make these reports more transparent so that New Yorkers have a true understanding of how AI is impacting them. But as a former member of this body and an everyday New Yorker, I say this with all respect. Today, at this point in time, we have to go beyond reporting bills, because the negative impacts are already happening. By the time we're looking at future reports, the damage will be already done. We need protections. We need policies that hold government agencies and corporate companies accountable when they use AI to cut jobs. We need to safeguard creative rights so AI doesn't rip off the work of independent artists. And we need to build real support systems for all workers who have no safety net when that time comes. If we think the affordability crisis is bad now, wait until thousands more are underemployed because a machine took their job. This isn't about stopping progress. It's about making sure people aren't left behind in the process. So let's not wait until it's too late. Let's lead with policy that'll blunt the negative impacts of AI on our city's workers. Thank you.
Thank you for that feedback. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Nadira Pittman. I'm just here to state that I am in support of 1066. Due to the ethical nature I have witnessed of AI being used wrongfully. As he said, it can be a friend or it can be a monster. I have seen the monster aspect of it, that these government agencies are utilizing it in the wrong way. They're tapping into, utilizing people's voices, and yeah, so it's becoming warfare type of usage on individuals. So I definitely wanted to state that. It's very dangerous. It can definitely alter minds. The mindset is kind of torturous if it's used incorrectly. So I definitely want to state that 1066 will uphold government with their ethics and how they carry out day-to-day usage of AI or any technical usage or technology, because a lot of people are getting impacted off of this new rising of AI. It's definitely, they can tap into phone lines, they can, again, like I said, go and take your voice, utilize your voice and use it again. They can go into, what I've experienced is them tapping into the MTA cameras and utilizing AI that way. On the speakers, I have all proof of all of this. This is not just something I noticed, I have proof of it. So it's definitely dangerous to us as individuals, and it's wrong, and we shouldn't accept it at all. It's not something that's unacceptable. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much. If you could just, yeah, there you go. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Liliana De Luca. I wanted to come to this meeting to point out the efforts of Columbia University professor Rafael Yuste to stop illegal uses of technology and neurotechnology. Professor Yuste heads the Neurotechnology Department of Columbia University and is also the director of the Neuro Rights Foundation. He advised the United Nations Secretary General to include the UN's highest priorities worldwide. There were 5 of them, including the banning of neurotechnology abuses and biotechnology abuses. He agreed with Nils Melzer, the UN Special Rapporteur on Torture, who wrote numerous reports on with the goal of stopping electronic torture attacks against civilians, which he named cyber torture, and defined it for the world in his first comprehensive report dated March 20, 2020. He said this was a new form of torture through illegal uses of electronic technologies, and that this crime against humanity had to be completely eradicated from the world. When heading Columbia University's neurotechnology department, Professor Yuste wrote down 5 important neuro rights that all human beings should have a right to access. These neuro rights include the right of people to have independent thinking and freedom of thought in connection with a person's civil liberties of freedom and independence.
If you could just wrap up, please.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The right to protect intellectual property, the right to privacy without intrusions into the brain and neural system of a person for profit. These neuro rights have been adopted by the Organization of American States, the Human Rights Council, and UNESCO. And the Human Rights Council is incorporating them into international treaties like the Covenant for Civil and Political Rights and the Universal Declaration of Human Rights.
Thank you. You can submit the rest of it for the record. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
I know I just wanted to make a comment. Rafael, welcome back to the chamber. It's nice to see you. It's nice to have you back. I would love to sit with you offline and discuss how we can bake in some policy protections based on your viewpoint with the freelancers. And I know that Jen had a question as well.
Thank you, and welcome back also.
Thank
For the membership, can you confirm if any of the freelancers in your membership, are they currently contracted with any city agencies right now in their capacity?
I'm sure we do have some members. We haven't looked at how many, but we do have teaching artists. We have folks who work in IT who have done work with the city. So.
Excellent. And then do you know, I know you gave some examples in your testimony. Do you know if in those instances there are any specific threats to AI tools, for example, supplementing the work that they're there to do?
Yeah, we've seen that members have seen on average about a 30% decrease in the amount of work they're getting, right? And 30% decrease in work means 30% decrease in the amount of income they're bringing home. And because of that, it is making it much more difficult for them to be able to afford the cost of living here in the city. And they're scrambling. They're trying to figure out how do they pivot. And I know there's a lot of conversation and there's a lot of advice that's being given that you have to become an expert at the AI tool in order for the AI tool not to take your job. But when you have corporations figuring out or government agencies figuring out how to use these AI tools without having to hire new people, it makes it really difficult for those folks to find work.
Thank you. Yeah, I think something that we tried to address here was what is the city doing to track those instances? And obviously the administration came with nothing, but it is very much top of mind. So thank you for all of your testimony today.
Thank you. And I guess I'll just end off by saying that this is one of the most powerful legislative bodies in the world. And y'all have an amazing opportunity to really set the tone of how governments across the world start tackling the issues with AI. So thank you.
Thank you. More work to do. Thank you all for being here and for providing testimony today.
I'm sorry.
So our final in-person panel is Fasil Lalani, Norma Simon, Adam Want, Michelle Ann Blondinile, sorry if I messed up your name, please correct it for the record, Faluso Ogudempu, and William Medina. And please correct all of the names that I messed up on the record. About 2 more people missing. Okay, there we go. You can just sit here and the microphone will be passed. You can join it. You're William? Yeah. Okay.
No.
Okay. All right. We can begin. Let's start on this side. If you could just pull the microphone over and we can begin.
Good afternoon, Chair Carmen de la Rosa and Council Member Jennifer Gutierrez. My name is William Medina. I'm organizer and member leader with Worker Justice Project. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today on behalf of Worker Justice Project, which organizes and supports Los Deliveristas Unidos. We want to highlight how technology is radically transforming the working lives on these workers, while digital platforms provide a source of income for thousands of people, most of them immigrants and essential workers. They have also introduced new forms of labor precarity. The algorithms, the government delivery apps determine how much workers earn, which order we receive, and all without transparency or the ability to adjust appeal process in case of having our accounts deactivated. This has created an equal system where deliveristas have very little control over their working conditions. On top of that, constant surveillance through GPS tracking, customer ratings, and delivery times create high levels of stress and psychological pressure. At Worker Justice Project, we work directly with this community. We heard their stories every day, deliveries in extreme weather accidents with no medical coverage, accounts suspended without explanation. Many workers are forced to choose between their safety and the daily income that feeds their families. That is why today we urge the City Council to invest more resources into programs that protect and empower this workforce. We need an increased budget to strengthen existing labor laws, support community resource centers like Los Deliveristas Unidos, and fund education, legal defense, and workplace safety programs. New York City has the opportunity to lead with justice, ensuring that technology is not used to exploit, but to dignity work. Deliveristas are not just symbols of a modern economy. They are human beings, parents, neighbors, and they deserve fair, safe, and transparent working conditions. Thank you for your time and for your commitment on labor justice.
Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, committee. Chair De La Rosa. My name is Norma Simone. I'm a former employee of Health and Hospitals. I didn't know beforehand that the agenda would include AI, but I'm glad that it does, because as it pertains specifically to me, I've been forced to use AI to represent myself before the Office of Labor Relations. This is because union representation is an act of charity, not altruism. It is funded through member dues, while DC 37 and Local 420 in particular, specifically President Carmen Charles, Health Professionals Division Director Marianella Santana, Counsel Stephen Sykes, and Grievance Rep Carl Jones, publicly promote solidarity. Privately, the actions that are taken behind the scenes undermine their members, such as myself, especially when faced with questions about accountability, lack of representation, and transparency. The Local 420 in particular exploits the collective bargaining agreement to absolve themselves from responsibility at will, often to the detriment of those they are elected to and appointed to protect. In doing so, the actions of DC 37 and Local 420 serves the interest of the employer rather than the workforce, with consequences that contribute directly to job loss and homelessness. What's more bothersome is that specifically these named individuals within Local 420's leadership cannot be trusted to act in the best interest of their members. If union members are forced to represent themselves with the use of AI, pro se by abandonment, shouldn't they be allowed a refund of their dues? Because my file was submitted for arbitration, empty of evidence that represents me. And then I was told that my file lacked merit for them to represent me in front of the Office of Labor Relations. So now I'm being forced to use AI, which I don't know specifically because I'm not a lawyer. My degree is a master's in psychology, child and adolescent development. And now I have to use AI after paying into a system for over a period of 9 years, instead of being represented by appointed and elected officials. That's not fair.
Thank you for your testimony, and we can speak offline after the hearing on the specifics. Thank you.
Hi, thank you for having me. My name is Faisal Olani, and I am the head of global partnerships for the Collective Intelligence Project. We are a nonprofit that focuses on building democratic alternatives to traditional AI models, and we work with governments around the world and civil society on AI safety wings. I am here independently, though, to talk about more general considerations that I think the city should take when considering responsible AI. First, you've heard a lot today about AI literacy. Take it from someone who's done AI literacy sessions from all around the world. A lot of the times you're met with tumbleweeds instead of people because most people are very busy or they just don't have the time and effort. So instead, I recommend embedding AI literacy within institutions, within curricula, and within the context of organizations. Second, I highly recommend democratizing understanding and scrutiny of AI. This can be done by, one, building a taxonomy of different types of AI, two, building mechanisms that allow the public to actually evaluate AI systems within the context of their work, and then three, actually measuring the efficacy of accountability measures, not just having policies, but how well do they work and how can people comply with them. Finally, I highly recommend that the city be more proactive in addition to reactive when it comes to AI governance. That means offering alternatives that prove responsible AI, open source, transparent, accessible, is far more effective and efficient than the current model. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, chairpersons, council members. Oh, I got to press the button. There you go. Good afternoon, chairpersons, council members, members of the public. Thank you for the invitation and opportunity to testify today. My name is Professor Adam Scott Want. I serve as Associate Professor of Public Policy and Deputy Chair for Technology in the Department of Public Management at John Jay College of Criminal Justice. A great deal of my academic and professional work focuses on the intersection of technology, law, and governmental transparency. I'm a licensed attorney, co-chair of the New York City Bar Association's Committee on Technology, Cyber, and Privacy Law, and a member of the Board of Directors of the Association of Inspectors General, where I work to increase technology and cyber knowledge of levels of our inspection and oversight professionals. My comments are my own and do not reflect any official position of any organization I'm affiliated with. I'm here to express strong support for two of today's proposed legislative amendments that would do two things. 1235 to establish a real-time tracking system for FOIL requests, and 372 to require city agencies to provide real-time application tracking tools. These are not just upgrades in technology, they are reinforcements of the democratic principles that are so important to all of us in New York City. Transparency tools like those that reduce bureaucratic opaqueness, empower residents, and help ensure government is responsive, fair, and efficient. They harness existing technology to address a core civic concern: how responsive and transparent is our government to the people that it serves? Let me begin with FOIL. For too long, the public's right to access government records has been undermined by a lack of transparency in how those requests are handled. Inconsistent timeline, delayed responses, and a lack of visibility into an agency's workflow has eroded public confidence in the FOIL system as a meaningful access tool. Implementing real-time tracking tools for FOIL requests, similar to tracking a package online, would offer requesters updates on the status of their submission from initial receipt to final release or denial. How confident would you be in a retailer if when ordering a package online you would not receive tracking information? It's the same idea here. Let me close by stressing that this is not just a matter of administrative convenience, it is a matter of public trust. In an era where faith in government is increasingly strained, it is essential that we take bold and measurable steps to reaffirm our commitment to transparency, accountability, and open government. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Hello, my name is Felucia Ogundepo, and I am speaking about 1066, the bill about AI, and I do have concerns about the use of AI in government. I've worked in the technology space in the private sector as a user experience designer and researcher and product manager, and I've seen how AI can negatively impact the workforce in the name of efficiency. I know this is the public sector, but the risks are definitely still there. And though I'm not a big fan of AI, I understand it's already here. And at the very least, we must do the best we can to ensure it's implemented as thoughtfully and as ethically as possible. This means having a comprehensive understanding of its impacts on the workforce and setting strict rules and guidelines on how and if it can be used. Earlier during the testimony, I heard the group bringing the bill reference maybe a budget lawyer potentially using AI in their work, which definitely raised concerns for me because, as you may know, there have been many examples of generative AI making up data or referencing sources that don't even exist, and especially in the public sector that can have really harmful impacts on real people if the quality of the AI that's being used is being used to make decisions that impact people in the city. Furthermore, researchers at MIT recently put out a report that suggests AI has the potential to reduce critical thinking skills in adults. That study is still going through the peer review process, so take it with a grain of salt, but the researchers did state that they published it before the peer review process was complete because they feared a lawmaker might come along and say, let's use AI in kindergarten, which would have even greater ramifications for child development. So all in all, I just hope that we look at AI very carefully and implement it as ethically as possible.
Thank you so much.
Good morning, honorable elected officials, and thank you for this opportunity to speak on the topic of technology. My name is Michelle Ann Blomenville. I am a health educator for 40 years. I'm a former adjunct lecturer at NYU, FIT, and a health and safety trainer at American Red Cross. Thank you for your servitude in these difficult times. I'm speaking on behalf of everyday people who are Havana syndrome or anomalous health incident victims, some knowingly and others unknowingly, with glaring awareness of the benefits afforded to our diplomat counterparts. We certainly hold fast to the notion that one day we will too be recognized and compensated. One day we'll be free from torture, pain, and invisibility, and the weaponization of technology. Havana syndrome includes remote access to the biometrics of a human being. Everyday people, Havana syndrome victims, are compromised of and diagnosed have been unlawfully experimented on and endure targeting in various nefarious manners. These heinous crimes include, but are not limited to, organized stalking, smear campaigns, noise harassment, electronic assaults from directed energy weapons, non-consensual human experimentation, socially and technologically, such as V2K blue eye technology and AI. They are put on illegal lists unknowingly that are distributed to various agencies for experimentation for vindictive reasons, technological research, and political harassment. We support your bill 1235-2025, even though these agencies neither deny or confirm that we are on their lists, and we are asking for advocacy and support
Thank you.
to protect our neural rights.
Thank you.
I have to take this thing down. Good evening. Thank you for this opportunity to speak. My name is Beverly Blondmanville. I have worked for Chase Manhattan Bank for many years, from my 20s into my retirement as a technology analyst. I worked on Y2K ATMs, which took us into the 21st century, to make sure the technology was in compliance for entry into the 21st century. Sorry. Fast forward into my retirement, I found myself being experimented on with AI and various technologies without my consent and without any knowledge of what was occurring. I am tortured 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, randomly at the mercy of whoever has access to my biometrics. This is painful and inhumane. I am asking for advocacy and support to protect my rights and the rights of all who are in the same position as I am. Thank you.
Thank you all so much for your testimony. Thank you. Okay, thanks. Thank you all for coming. Okay, thank you all who came here to share your thoughts and experiences today. If there is anyone in the chamber who wishes to speak but has not yet had an opportunity to do so, please raise your hand and fill out an appearance card with the Sergeant at Arms at the back of the room. Seeing no hands in the chamber, we will now shift to Zoom testimony. When your name is called, please wait for the member of our team to unmute you. The Sergeant at Arms will indicate that you may begin. We will start with Daniel Wolf, followed by Samantha Sanchez.
You may begin.
Good afternoon, Chair Gutierrez, Chair De La Rosa, and members of the committees. My name is Dan Wolf, and I'm the Director of State Programs for the Alliance for Digital Innovation. We are a nonpartisan alliance of technology companies focused on accelerating change in the public sector through the adoption of commercial technology. ADI supports Intro 540 and encourages the committee to treat this legislation favorably and report it from your committee. This legislation represents an important step forward toward ensuring New York City can prioritize scalable, secure, and cost-effective cloud solutions over aging legacy systems. Cities across the country are leveraging cloud computing to modernize their services, improve their resilience, and enhance their cybersecurity. This bill is not a mandate to immediately shift all systems to the cloud. Rather, it represents a data-driven evaluation of where cloud can best serve the city's needs and what reforms are necessary to get there. It reflects a pragmatic, measured approach that we believe will position the city to respond nimbly to future challenges and opportunities. We're especially encouraged that the bill calls for assessing procurement barriers and workforce training needs. Too often, outdated contracting models and skill gaps impede the transition to modern platforms, resulting in a diminished return on investment for government agencies. By identifying these issues up front, the city can ensure that any future cloud strategy is both sustainable and inclusive of its diverse workforce and vendor community. So we encourage swift passage of intro number 540, and our members stand ready to support the city on its modernization journey. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you so much. Up next, we have Samantha Sanchez.
You may begin.
Good afternoon, Chair Gutierrez and members of the committee. My name is Samantha Sanchez, and I serve as the program manager at Common Cause New York, a nonpartisan nonprofit committed to strengthening open, accountable, and participatory government. Thank you for the opportunity to submit testimony of Intro 1235, 540, and 1066. I've also submitted written testimony that goes more in detail. We strongly support Intro 1235, which will enhance FOIL transparency by requiring agencies to publicly disclose how they process requests. This promotes compliance, strengthens open records, and ensures better public access to information at a time when trust in governments is critical. We also support Intro 1066, which establishes the task force to assess the impact of open AI on civil service roles. We echo the concerns raised today and urge the task force to examine whether AI displaces workers or improves their roles. We also recommend creating an AI workforce pipeline for vulnerable positions and including an ethical AI advisor to guide the city. As a good government organization, we are concerned by the inconsistent deployment of AI tools across agencies and commend the council for bringing these issues to light. While we do not take a formal position on Intro 540, we applaud the council's oversight of the city's cloud-first strategy and urge the inclusion of experts in procurement, data security, and training. Thank you for your time and leadership today.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Up next, we have Cynthia Conti Cook.
You may begin.
Good afternoon. Thank you to both chairs and to members of the Committees on Technology and Civil Service and Labor for holding this critical hearing. My name is Cynthia Conti Cook, and I am the Director of Research and Policy at the Collaborative Research Center for Resilience, which the Surveillance Resistance Lab is now a project of. Over the past year, we have been learning from and empowering union leaders in the public sector whose members are confronting automation and its impact on their working conditions, and I join you today to support and comment on 1066. Public sector workers are uniquely on the front lines of protecting the communities they serve from technologies and policies that empower policing and corporate vendors and ultimately threaten community well-being and diminish democratic power. It's in this context that we recognize the unique role and responsibility of the workers who stand between sensitive government data and functions and the forces that seek control over them. We therefore recommend that the scope of the task force described in 1066 be broadened in two ways, and I also echo other calls for more significant action to be taken beyond the continuation of studies and task force by the city in relationship to AI. First, the task force should be not limited to examining strictly tools that are quote unquote AI. As said during this hearing, that definition is murky and a marketing industry term. They should be prepared to evaluate any digital technologies that involve massive data collection, automation, or use of large language models. Second, the task force scope should go beyond impact on workers' positions and include more broadly the quality of public service, municipal liability that could be introduced by the reckless deployment of automated tools in contexts that have protections based in the Constitution and other statutes, the integrity of constitutional and statutory privacy protections, community access.
Thank you for your testimony. Time has expired.
Thank you. Please submit the rest of your testimony. Thank you so much. Up next, we have Olivia Gonzalez Killings.
You may begin.
Hi, my name is Olivia Gonzalez Killingsworth. I'm going to be honest, I'm not exactly sure how I got invited to this committee hearing, but I'm happy to testify in support of Intro 1066 to create a task force on the impact of AI on city services and city workers. I do happen to be a professional actor and a rank and file member of SAG-AFTRA for 20 years, which, as you may remember, went on a historic strike 2 years ago. after which we run groundbreaking AI protections for our members. So I know it's possible for our city to develop policies that guide automation in the workplace in a way that benefits everyone and not just the few. That means investing in workforce training and education, updating our labor laws, and ensuring consent, transparency, and accountability in the use of AI and automation in city services. As noted in this committee's report, the city has not yet adopted a comprehensive framework for AI governance and has only enacted a few targeted measures, so this task force is very much needed. Despite the potential benefits in certain areas, automation can have pervasive and harmful impacts on workers and our broader economy. Job displacement is real, widening the economic divide. The financial benefits mostly flow to large corporations, while everyday workers bear the costs and small businesses struggle to compete. Without a path to retraining or reemployment, we risk creating a permanent underclass of workers left behind by technological progress. So when the city can find millions to experiment with AI, but not enough to ensure functioning air conditioning in city workers' offices, yes, I'm talking about 100 gold, it seems like city leaders already think that some workers have been replaced by algorithms who don't require dignity on the job. And even models that use a human in the loop approach can be risky if decision makers rely too heavily on AI that may be biased or even hallucinating, even if they're trained on
Thank you for your
lots of data
testimony.
sets.
Time has expired.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. We value your testimony, and please submit the rest of it. We'd love to continue reading it. Thank you so much. Up next, we have Christopher Leon Johnson.
You may begin.
Yeah, hello. My name is Christopher Leon. Please put the task force, because just like you heard earlier by Mr. Medina about the deliverista situation, these guys are slowly getting faded out. I think you guys know about the situation with DoorDash locking out. Now you have Relay doing the same thing, and congratulations on them for winning that battle with Relay. I'm calling the city council, starting with these two councilmen right here, Chair Gutierrez and Chair Carmen de la Rosa. If you two really care about the deliveristas, Los Deliveristas Workers Justice Project, you need to introduce a bill in this session when it comes to protecting these deliveristas from getting locked out. I understand that the city council has recently put a bill with Linda Lee and Mrs. Linda Lee and Mr. Sheikh Christian and protecting the Taxi Workers Alliance. At the same time, I care about the Taxi Workers Alliance too. But at the same time, y'all need to really care about the Worker Justice Project and the Los Deliveristas. And if y'all really care, it doesn't matter about the speaker, because she's out the door. Adrienne Adams out the door as the city council member, and on the shit she got punted by DoorDash for her mayor race. But y'all need to introduce a bill because next year I'm feeling that the apps are really gonna fight back, and really unless Saran wins this mayor's race, the apps are really gonna fight back and lock all you guys and gals out. And it's in their hand. And like I said, it's up to you too, because and the speaker's out the door. You guys have about 4 years left as members. Do the right thing and introduce a bill. I understand it might not go through, but introduce a bill in this session before December 31st to say that you care about these deliveristas, that you care about Ligia and William and Gustavo and Alejandro.
Thank you for your testimony. Time has expired.
Thank you so much and enjoy your day. Please introduce a bill in support of Los Deliveristas. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Making a call for Alex Stein and Armando Rodriguez. If you are here and wish to testify, please approach the dais. All right, we're also making a final call for Zoom registrants who have not yet spoken. If you are currently on Zoom and wish to speak, but have not yet had the opportunity to do so, please use the raise hand function and our staff will unmute you. Seeing no hands, I would like to note that everyone can submit written testimony to testimony@council.nyc.gov within 72 hours of this hearing. To conclude, I would like to thank everyone who is working to make our city's adoption of AI technologies more accessible, transparent, and equitable to city workers, as well as all committee staff who have helped to prepare for this hearing.
In addition, I'd like to take a moment to express our thanks to all of the interested advocates who've attended today's hearing. Thank you all so much for this hearing, and as a point of personal privilege, our daughters are here. Woo! Chair Gutierrez's daughter Hazel and my daughter Mia. They behaved very well throughout these proceedings. Today is the last day of school, so working moms in action. Thank you all for being here, and this hearing is